Alright, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PLAYERSTOO.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really helps us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more. And Lewis, why not be a double legend and go and review us on Spotify as well? Again, it just helps us out even more. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You are a genuine legend to us. Alright, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson. With me, as always, Mr. Lewis Camley. How's it going, Lewis?
Going not bad at all, Mark. How are you getting on?
Not bad. We're back.
We are back, yeah. Apologies, everyone, for missing last week. This time, it was absolutely my fault. A wee bit of a household emergency that meant I couldn't record on the night we were supposed to. At the end of a quite mad couple of weeks where I have both left my job and turned 30 in the time since we last spoke, Mark. So,
way, you're old like me.
Yeah, I've joined the 30 club. That wasn't the emergency, although it does feel like an ongoing one.
Yeah, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, when one of us can't do the podcast, we are a two-man operation, so It just is what it is. Sometimes life gets in the way. Some things are more important than doing the podcast, unfortunately. As much as we would love the podcast to be the most important thing in our lives, it unfortunately is not. No. Anyway, Lewis, enough of that. What have you been playing this week?
Just Elden Ring, Mark. Only Elden Ring. Forever Elden Ring, I fear. Yeah, I've made a bit of progress. I've now put in, I guess, something like 15 to 20 hours. There is an in-game clock. I haven't been checking it. Probably nearer that 15 mark than the 20, to be totally honest. It's just quite hard to tell. It's quite hard to tell, Mark, because I've basically made nothing that in a conventional sense would be called progress, I don't think. I have now fought maybe 3 or 4 bosses. I've killed a couple of bosses. I had one boss fight just earlier today, which was like a total piece of piss because my magic attack seemed to just do a load of damage. I didn't know that was going to happen. But I've not progressed the story in any meaningful way that I can discern. I've uncovered lots of map, which has been great, and I found lots of little dungeons and interesting things, and strange things have happened to me. I had another moment where I opened a chest and suddenly I was transported to literally the far corner of the map in a place that I hadn't been to yet, and it was a bad place and I didn't like being there.
Souls games are like that. They'll just fuck you for no reason whatsoever.
Exactly. And I've seen a few articles kind of saying this in the last few days as well, but it's a really funny game because of stuff like that, and so was Bloodborne when I was playing that, to be honest. Like, unintentionally funny because just incredibly stupid things will happen that will kill you and you can't help but just kind of laugh at it.
Yeah, totally get that, yeah.
So yeah, I've been obviously really enjoying it. It's taken me a good bit of time to get to grips with it, if I'm totally honest. There's just enough subtle differences from what I was used to with Bloodborne where it has been a little bit of a struggle to get used to combat, particularly to the healing mechanic, which just doesn't work in the same way really as it did in Bloodborne. I think it probably is how it worked with Dark Souls though. So if you've got a background in the other Souls games, you're probably in a better position than I have been playing this. But ultimately, making progress, enjoying what I've done so far, and I'm kind of heading towards what I think is the first proper sort of story moment, the first proper non-optional boss that you want to be fighting. I think that's coming up at least. I am finding it very slightly overwhelming because of all of that. Like, I've just been wandering about in the wilderness at times, kind of unsure where to go, and unlike other open world games like Breath of the Wild, you do want to look off into the distance and sort of see things and think, that looks interesting, I'll head towards that. But of course, because it's a Souls game, most of the time when you look into the distance, you just see some big fucking beast and you don't want to go towards it. And so
that is fair enough, yeah.
So there's been a few things like that have been holding me back, but I'm starting to hit my groove with it. I've been, obviously, unlike Bloodborne, the ability to level up is so much greater because you can just go about killing smaller bands of enemies and getting runes that way and employing them into your character. So I'm starting to get to a level where I feel a lot more competent going into most encounters that I've come across so far. So get in there, Mark, but this is going to go on for some time, so expect more Elden Ring updates.
We'll still be talking about Elden Ring at Christmas, ladies
probably. And what about you, Mark? What have you been playing?
It's just more Horizon for me, I've got to say. I really don't have too much to add. I'm probably into the last third of the game now, I think. Well, if the map's anything to go by, certainly, and what the story is sort of building on, I think that I'm sort of in the last third. Probably probably north of 30 hours now, probably quite comfortably north of 30 hours now, to be totally honest. Despite some minor gripes with the game, it is a very good game overall. Like, truly great game. If you own a PlayStation, do yourself a favour and play this. It's really, really, really good. It genuinely is. Last time we recorded, Lewis, you wanted to ask me about the underwater stuff, and I've remembered that, so that's what I'm going to talk about here. The trailers really heavily relied upon the water stuff, it felt like, to me. Famously, Lewis, the underwater sections of video games are absolutely hot garbage. However, in this game, they are fine. They are totally okay. When we last spoke, I was about halfway through the game at that point. Well, maybe slightly before halfway through the game at that point. And that was when I only just got the device that allows you to breathe underwater indefinitely. That's just not a thing that happens, which I think a lot of people seem to be inferring from the trailer. But that's the thing you have to go and collect, and is part of like the main mission to get. So really the water's sort of used as like a sort of skill gate or like a progress check. Do you know what I mean? It's more relied upon in terms of like a puzzle or like a barrier to overcome. A lot of things where you dive into the water, a lot of it is, how am I going to get this water out of here to then deal with the enemies that are in here to then do what I have to do, sort of thing. So the water in and of itself, you're not spending a great amount of time in it, apart from the one mission that you get the infinite underwater breathing apparatus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is basically teaching you the mechanics, you know what I mean? So I can forgive it for that. But it's not overwhelmed with underwater sections, ladies and gentlemen, and the ones that it does have are fine. They're fine. Okay. They're fine.
Fair enough. I was quite nervous that it was just going to be an unnecessary big addition to the game just to give it something new that the first one didn't have, but it sounds like it's...
Actually, I would say that I admire the restraint here, because they could have just whapped it everywhere and they so didn't do that, which I'm very pleased about, unless the amount of map that I have left is just one big enormous piece of water, in which case I reserve judgment until I fully clear the map.
The last third of the game is now, just in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Alright, Lewis, I think it is time for the news. Alright, Lewis, news item number 1. PlayStation have had a state of play and separately have shown an extended gameplay trailer of Hogwarts Legacy in back-to-back weeks. So, starting off with the state of play, because talking about Harry Potter in any capacity is a fucking minefield these days. But starting off with the state of play, firstly, things kicked off with Exo Primal, a new co-op action game by Capcom featuring waves of dinosaurs, raining dinosaurs, Lewis. And yet somehow this is not Dino Crisis. Honestly, Lewis, I thought this looked like one of the worst games I've fucking ever seen. It looked absolutely dreadful. In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to go and check out the game, it comes in 2023. Next up, we got trailers for Ghostwire Tokyo and Final Fantasy Origin. These will both be featuring in our shoutouts, so we're just going to skip right over them here and we will talk about them later on because both of the reviews for those games are now out. After that, we got a new trailer for Forspoken. Every time I see this game, Lewis, I just think, yep, combat looks great, movement looks great. Then everything else around it, I'm a wee bit like, not sure about that. The game also very recently got delayed from May the 26th to October the 11th. And I know that we're in a sort of hotbed right now of game releases, but that does feel to me a bit like moving out of the frying pan and into the fire. Because October's just going to be equally as bad, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It does seem like a strange place to move it to. I guess maybe there's a chance that Call of Duty isn't coming this October, and some companies are going to look at that space as being a wee bit more open than normal. But on the trailer itself, you're right, like the combat and the movement and stuff looks really good, but there's still so much there to be revealed, I think. I just want to see a bit more of it, and I want to see it polished up. I hope with the delay they actually go a bit silent on it for a while, because I feel like it's basically shown up at most PlayStation events recently.
Agreed. And just become the new Deathloop.
It totally has.
It's just all over the place.
So they've now got 7 months basically until it's going to release. Like, do not show us this again until it's nicely polished and you've got a really interesting trailer to show. Maybe that's it in the kind of E3 zone. Maybe that's just like a dedicated state of play in sort of August, September. But yeah, go quiet for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. FYI, I think it's 2023 that we're missing a Call of Duty, so there will be a Call of Duty this year, which will be the only Call of Duty you will have for 2 years. So I wouldn't recommend that release window personally.
No, maybe
but
not.
Anyway, moving on. Next, there was a trailer for Gundam Evolution, which is a Gundam multiplayer FPS game, which is due out next year. If you're interested in Gundam, go and check that out. Then there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection, which is also due out this year, which features 13 classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games, like old school arcade stuff. I know a lot of retro fans were into this, so it's great for people that love those old games, you know. Then after that was Giga Bash, which is a kaiju brawler, which is also coming out this year, and it looks exactly as mad as it sounds, is what I will say there. Next was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R, which is a remake of a 2013 game of the same name. It's due out this autumn. If you know what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is, maybe go and check it out. If you don't, probably don't worry about it. After that was a really, really interesting looking indie game, which I know has cropped up a couple of times, but Trek to Yomi, Lewis, which looks like the exact intersection between Ghost of Tsushima and Sifu. It is a black and white aesthetic, very Kurosawa looking, side-scrolling action game. Honestly, I thought it looked pretty good. Honestly, this is doing more for me than Sifu was.
Yeah, I think it's looking really interesting. We've seen it a couple of times now at different events. I mean, your description of it is pretty spot on. And I don't think we know much more than that about it at the moment. Just a really stylish kind of side-scrolling brawler type thing, but with a lot more to it than that. And this is definitely one that I think we're going to be talking about when it releases as being one of the kind of more interesting indie games. So keep an eye on this one.
No, definitely. The one thing that I can't find out is whether or not it's a roguelike. I hope that it's not, but it looks like it might be.
Oh, it probably is. It probably is. It's the year 2022, Mark. Everything's a roguelike.
Next up after that was the announcement of the Ascension update or DLC for Returnal, which is free and will bring a co-op mode and a new survival mode to the game. Lewis, I would fucking love to play co-op Returnal with you. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I was really excited to see this update. It's such a great addition online co-op mode for the story campaign, and then separately a single player survival mode, a big tower to make your way up through. Yeah. Both of them.
Video
for people, that's it. Yeah, for people who loved Returnal, I think that survival thing is going to be a great reason to come back to it. But I am totally sold on the idea of getting dragged through Returnal's campaign with you on co-op mode. So yeah, let's definitely get that sorted sometime. Yeah,
I wonder how they sort of work the difficulty there. I assume that they make things slightly more difficult because it's co-op. But anyway, either way, very excited to play with you.
And it's out today as we record this, so people can
out
jump
today
straight
as we
in.
record it. Yeah, man. Then they closed out with 2 games from Square Enix. Both are due out this year. Firstly, we had the Diofield Chronicles, which is a strategy RPG, which looks somewhere between classic Final Fantasy and Fire Emblem. And secondly, we got Valkyrie Elysium, which is an action RPG, which has given me very strong Nier vibes, like OG Nier, or the remake of OG Nier, is what I will say. Then a week after that, Lewis, we got an extended look, nearly 15-minute look of Hogwarts Legacy gameplay. Now, we basically cannot talk about Hogwarts Legacy without talking about the shit that J.K. Rowling keeps spewing at trans people. Let's circle back to that is what I'm going to say, because while I think that is important to talk about, I think that it is important that it is part of this conversation, but it is very easy for this conversation to become all about J.K. Rowling, and that is not at all what I want to talk about. I want to talk about video games. That is an important aspect of it. Let's come back to it. Because, focusing on the game now, I think this looks surprisingly fucking good. I was shocked at how good this looked. I had zero expectations for this game whatsoever, if I'm completely honest with you, Liz. They also said that there would be no microtransactions in this game, which is incredible because WB are quite bad for them, and this is Harry Potter, and it's definitely going to sell a lot just on name alone. But yeah, for me, it has truly surprised me at how good it looked. Even the combat and everything, like, it surprised me how good it looked.
Yeah, I remember you being a bit more sceptical about it than I was when it first got shown off. And
I think I'm going to be straight with you. I thought this was going to be a cash grab piece of dog shit. Like, I really thought this was going to be terrible.
To be fair, I kind of agree with you. I think it looks about as good as I think anyone could have reasonably hoped for it to. Within the concept of it, there's still, to me, this issue of you are at school and a lot of the activity seems to be going to classes, and I just don't really know how interesting, ultimately that can be. But then there's...
Well, Fire Emblem Three Houses did it pretty
sure,
well.
But then...
You know what I mean? That was a big part of that game as well.
Well, I mean, and I didn't play that, and I don't know to the extent to which, how different all of that was. I just have this fear that you're going to go to potions class in order to, refill your supply of potions, and then you're going to go to some other class to do your upgrade skills or whatever. It's just, I don't know, it feels like it could be really kind of static. But what I did like was that they showed all the kind of adventuring outside of Hogwarts itself, and like down into the bowels of the castle for one, but then also out beyond the grounds.
Yeah, you were on like a broom and stuff like that.
On a broom.
Yeah. It's more open than I thought it would be as well.
Totally. I agree. Like the combat, like wand combat could be totally shit, and I think that they've made it look decent. I've heard comparisons being drawn to things like Jedi Fallen Order, which I can kind of see, not just in the combat, but kind of just in the movement and in the gameplay design generally. And there's the big creatures that you seem like you'll be fighting, like that had reminiscence for Jedi Fallen Order to me as well. So yeah, I was kind of impressed and surprised by how much better I thought it looked than it really might have done, because it could have been a total cash grab shit show, and it looks a bit healthier than that.
It really does. Like, I actually think that it looks pretty healthy. It looks like a competent, well-made game, to be totally honest, and that was not necessarily on the cards for me, I have to admit. So I said we would come back around to talk about J.K. Rowling's trans bullshit, and here we are, unfortunately. But I do think that we are not really the voices you should be listening to here with regards to trans issues. Thankfully, Jessie Earl, who is a trans woman, has written an amazing article over at GameStop called J.K. Rowling's Anti-Transgender Stance and Hogwarts Legacy, which really highlights the issues with J.K. Rowling's comments and how that they have affected the trans community. And it sort of touches as well on the struggle, the uncomfortable feeling of wanting to like Harry Potter but not liking J.K. Rowling, It really is genuinely very good. Links as always over on the show notes at PlayersToo.com. Highly, highly recommend you read that. It is a truly fantastic article. So, I think it is better for us all to listen to trans voices when talking about this stuff. So, I'll have Lewis right now read the last two paragraphs of our article.
You're not a bad person if you want to play Hogwarts Legacy. Many trans people themselves are planning to buy the game despite their justified anger towards Rowling. Yet the important thing is not to condemn the game or renounce your love of Harry Potter, it's to wrestle with the complexity of it and decide for yourself. Trans people don't get to ignore the pain the franchise has become intrinsically linked to, and those who wish to care for them shouldn't get to do so either. Many will ignore this article and others like it in order to turn a blind eye to the harm done or seek absolution for their choice in buying the game. Some will even, and already have, proudly proclaimed their forthcoming purchase in order to express their disdain for having to think about trans people at all. You don't get to defend Rowling or Harry Potter and not understand what that actually means to a trans person or the ramification it has for all of us, not just trans people. So, supporting Hogwarts Legacy, a game about fighting magical fantasy bigots, isn't wrong, but ignoring its legacy within actual bigotry would be.
Which I think is incredibly well said.
I totally agree.
Frankly, yep. I totally agree with her. Look, I don't begrudge anyone who wants to buy this game, or who's excited about this game, or who likes Harry Potter and loves the books, who's like a super fan. Like, I don't begrudge any of you. That is totally fine. Having said that, even if this were my kind of game, let's say, I would really have no interest in playing this, because for me and for a lot of people, I think, like, I just have no interest whatsoever in interacting with this franchise anymore at all. The well has been well and truly poisoned, let's be honest, which is also a valid position, and it's a fine position to take, I think. I don't think that it's right that we just talk about the game in isolation, because the game doesn't exist in isolation, Lewis. No art exists in isolation. It exists with J.K. Rowling's fucking trans bigotry looming over it, do you know what I mean? And that fundamentally changes how we interpret our work, because, like I said, these things don't exist in a vacuum. I think it's very easy for us just to put up a wall and just shut all that off, but I really think to do that and to ignore the real, proper, life-threatening in some cases issues that trans people are facing because of comments like those that J.K. Rowling makes, just to put up that wall and just ignore it is to invalidate that and to say that that doesn't matter and that isn't important, when in actual fact it's vastly more important than a video game.
Yeah, absolutely. There couldn't be a greater difference between the levels of import here. You know, buying and playing this video game is something that you might do for your enjoyment, but there are people's human rights, their day-to-day living that are threatened by the types of things that Rowling and others have said. And obviously the one kind of major defense that a lot of people will put up for this game is that she might not be profiting from it directly or isn't directly involved in it. But of course, even the fact even we are now talking about this game, talking about her, making her views kind of known, even if we're not repeating them, that this is the nature of media, right? You cannot, like you said, nothing exists in a vacuum. And so there is no way that this game succeeds and that doesn't have a knock-on effect for the value of Harry Potter, which has a knock-on effect for her incredible financial might and also her platform, right? So the two things really can't be separated. And I think Jesse Earl here, and I've read others, Stacey Henley over at The Gamer has written some stuff about all this as well, another trans writer, that is deeply connected to their lives and to a lot of trans people, who have grown up with Harry Potter and really set a lot of stock in what the books, particularly of Harry Potter, are saying about them and their experience. They are going through hell trying to deal with this situation with this creator, and it's the least that we can do is to listen to them and to maybe decide not to make certain purchasing decisions in order to support people that are going through that. I think that, as Jesse says here, the absolute minimum we can all do really is at least grapple with it, at least think about it. And obviously millions of people will buy this game and will not think about it, and it will just, brace yourselves, it is going to be an enormous success. It simply is. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't all be discussing this and making it as clear as we all can within the spheres that we kind of have influence.
No, and I do feel for the devs as well. Like, obviously trans people are the
I mean, there could be trans devs working on this, even,
well, of course, and I think the studios could basically come out and said as much as you can make a trans character in this game. Like, we don't support what J.K. Rowling's saying here. Do you know what I mean? And nonetheless, they will be confronted with this every single time they have to talk about their game. You know what I mean? And it just sucks for them as well, considering they've made what looks like a pretty fucking good game. Alright, let's moving on to news item number 2. PlayStation have acquired Jade Raymond's Haven studio. For those that don't know, Jade Raymond worked on the first 2 Assassin's Creed games when they were new and original, and Far Cry 4 at Ubisoft. She then went on to work at EA. She was supposed to be working on Amy Hennig's Star Wars project called Project Ragtag, but we all know how that ended. And then she ended up going to work at Google after that as a vice president and the head of Stadia Games. But we all know how that ended. Unfortunately, she's had a rotten run of luck loose. However, she has now started her own studio called Haven with 5 co-founders and 20 ex-Google employees. It was announced at the time that the studio launched with investment from PlayStation. This is something PlayStation were doing at the time. They also done it with Firewalk Studios. They also done it with Deviation Games. And that they would be making their first game a PlayStation exclusive IP. But now they have been fully purchased and are now officially a PlayStation studio, despite not actually having had made a game yet, which I think says a lot about Jade Raymond and her place in the games industry and the amount of respect that she has, because I strongly suspect that this purchase is actually to get her on the team and not for whatever IP that they're making. There's been a couple of statements made about this. Firstly, by PlayStation's CEO Jim Ryan, and secondly by Raymond herself.
Yeah, so Jim Ryan said, Haven Studios is an emerging studio with an exceptional team of talent, and we're delighted to welcome them into PlayStation as our first game development studio in Canada. The studio's focus on creating an original AAA multiplayer game will not only flex the power of PlayStation 5, but will further expand upon the diverse catalogue of gaming experiences that can only be found on PlayStation. And following that up, Jade Raymond herself said, joining PlayStation Studios provides Haven with the creative freedom and unparalleled support to focus on building the highest quality games. We're excited to have the opportunity to collaborate with and learn from all of the exceptional PlayStation Studios teams. We intend to fully embrace the incredible capabilities of the PS5 to create new worlds that inspire players and allow them to connect in new ways.
It seems as though the intention is for Raymond to make a live service game as a quote-unquote social platform and is, quotes again, designed to be owned by the fans. So that is absolutely nothing that I'm interested in whatsoever, Lewis, I have to say. But I think it shows that PlayStation have a very strong desire to get involved in the game services space. I think that they've already said that they are going to be launching 10 service games before 2026, which is a lot. Presumably this will be one of the bigger ones as well, you would have thought. What are your thoughts on this generally? I think that it's a very interesting move by PlayStation. I do think that it shows their intent, but ultimately, on the negative side, it is just more industry consolidation.
Yeah, it definitely is more consolidation, which is not great, as we've discussed loads of times recently. I guess this one is a bit of a funny one, even in that regard, though, because this studio was only just set up, a year ago at most or whatever, and so it's not removing a major piece from the board.
It's not Activision, but it's still, it's consolidation.
It's still, I think the thing that worries me more really is that it points to Sony continuing to make more acquisitions, possibly take riskier decisions than they might have done without things like the Activision deal, because Jade Raymond, if it is just that her name alone has brought her in-house, that's a risky move to take. She hasn't shipped a game in, I don't know, something like 7 years. She's been involved in sort of several high-profile failures, not for a second saying that they were her or that should count against her, but I just wonder whether PlayStation would have done what they have done with certain other smaller studios, which is kind of wait to see them. We talked about Returnal being a bit like an audition for Housemarque. Sure. You would have thought that they might have let Haven do that, and maybe they're thinking, actually, we need to get multiplayer talent in-house quickly, so we're just going to buy it. I think this will probably all work out fine, ultimately. And yeah, there's knowledge that Jade Raymond brings to their team, and also the knowledge that Bungie can bring to this project within the PlayStation family in particular. There's a lot of, you can see a lot of synergy there, to use that, it's a horrible word, but
yeah, that was disgusting. That made me feel sick.
But we're in business land here, so you can kind of see how all the pieces have joined up and this has come to happen. But it does feel like a slightly riskier move than we've seen from PlayStation for a wee while.
Yeah, I think that's fair, man. Ultimately, like you, I think that this is going to turn out fine. I think that getting Jade Raymond on your team, someone of that caliber, is never going to be a bad thing, really, even if the first game that they ship isn't particularly good. You know what I mean? Yeah, but I think it's an interesting move, and I think it definitely shows the intent and the direction that PlayStation want to grow into, All right, Lewis, news item number 3. Very PlayStation-centric, we have to say so far, and this news item is no different, but unfortunately very, very, very negative on PlayStation, because they have recently been sued for gender discrimination. This was back in November. This all started kicking off, and it was just a week or so after all the Activision sexual misconduct stuff came out. So I feel as though this was maybe a little overshadowed and a little forgotten about, which really isn't great either. But there was a lot happening at that particular time with Activision. Subsequently, it transpired that PlayStation tried to get this lawsuit thrown out, which is not good, obviously, but it's pretty much par for the course when anyone sues anyone, let alone a big company. Do you know what I mean? But in response to that, this is the important bit, another 8 women have come forward claiming sexual discrimination, misconduct and harassment. It is the usual swathe of allegations that we are sadly become quite used to now in the video games industry, e.g. it is lack of opportunity for female staff, including promotions, it is demeaning comments, it is unwanted sexual advances, it is even a woman claiming that a senior manager attempted to grope her, which is... It's horrible that this is still happening in the world today, let alone in an industry that we all care about, So, obviously, Lewis, this is very, very bad. PlayStation have now acknowledged the allegations 4 months after the fact and have now made this statement.
Although most are by former employees who no longer work at Sony Interactive Entertainment, SIE either has addressed or will address the issues raised in them in due course, as SIE values its female employees and takes proactive steps to ensure they have every opportunity to thrive and be heard.
Now, while it is good, obviously, that they are saying that they have either dealt with or are dealing with the comments made in these accusations, as we know from other examples, words mean little when it comes to things like this, and actions speak very loudly. Looking at you, Ubisoft. However, it is worth pointing out that PlayStation's lawyers are still saying that this is a weak allegation, basically, and that the allegations have failed to prove that PlayStation have broken any of its policies or that there is an across-the-board imbalance which impacts women at the company. So that doesn't speak like someone who's very game for changing their mind, you know what I mean, at the same time, but I suppose this is what you pay lawyers for, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So take from that what you will, but Lewis, not good, and a reckoning in the gaming space continues, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. This is not good stuff whatsoever. I really hope that Sony, even if this doesn't end up in court or whatever, that they do actually live up to those kind of stated values there and do make changes. I'm pretty sceptical about that, to be honest, unless they're forced to by a judge, but there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple of other reports worth mentioning in this kind of area as well that have come out in the last few days, neither of which I think we are as up to speed on as we were with this PlayStation one. But one report from VentureBeat into Moon Studios, who are the developers behind the Ori games that we really love, they have written a piece that basically breaks down a really toxic culture coming from the two founders of that studio, Thomas Mailer and Gennady Korol, which we'll link to in the show notes over at PlayersToo.com. Worth checking out. It's some pretty grisly reading that I think led one developer to say that they felt soul destroyed while they worked there. And similarly, People Make Games, which is a YouTube channel and kind of platform, they did an investigation on 3 studios, all connected through Annapurna as their publisher. That was Mountains, the team behind Florence; Fulbright, the team behind Gone Home, who there's been a history of allegations against their founder, which I think we covered when that was first made public about a year or so ago, and Phenomena. All of these being kind of indie studios led by superstars that all have really significant problems at them. Again, we'll link to the video from People Make Games in the show notes. I just wanted to quickly read the summary from a Eurogamer article about all of this, which kind of concludes their piece, and I think it's quite important to everything that we're saying here. People Make Games report concluded by suggesting that smaller indie studios were often created without the necessary fail-safes required to protect all staff, and that with these 3 studios, auteurs caused projects to fail, which left staff traumatised. Perhaps, the report suggests, rather than us buying into the unhealthy obsession with auteur game creators, publishers such as Annapurna could do more to protect the staff of studios it works with. So definitely a lot to dig into there, and check out those articles over on the show notes on PlayersToo.com.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's so sad. I mean, we laud these studios ourselves, do you know what I mean? Like Florence, I still maintain is one of the best mobile games ever made. Yeah, really, really, really sad to hear, but it can't be ignored, and it shouldn't be ignored.
Shouldn't be, no.
Not at all. All right, list news item number 4, and some Xbox news now, but not great Xbox news if I'm honest. Perfect Dark might be in a bit of trouble, and we haven't actually seen the game yet. It seems that around half of the core development team have left the initiative, which is the studio behind the new Perfect Dark game. Around 36 staff have left from senior positions, basically. This includes the game director, the design director, the technical art director, the lead level designer, the lead gameplay engineer, the lead animator, the QA lead, the principal world builder, 2 senior designers, 3 former God of War designers, and the 2 most senior writers have all left the project. And I mean, we've spoken before about when game directors leave projects in the middle of the development, which is never usually a good sign. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's trouble at the game, but it is rarely a positive move for what the final product ends up being, you know. However, a laundry list like that leaving a company is screaming at me that there is something wrong. Do you know what I mean? It is worth noting as well that the timing of these departures coincides with the announcement that Crystal Dynamics has signed to co-develop Perfect Dark, which was a weird move at the time as well, bringing in a big third party to co-develop your first party Xbox game. You know what I mean? It was just strange. And I know that there's some like historic links between the people now at Initiative and Crystal Dynamics, but it was still weird. It was still odd. Not that we thought anything like this was happening, but it was just a strange move. What is not clear is whether or not Crystal Dynamics were brought on because so many people are leaving, or Crystal Dynamics was brought on and then a lot of people left. It's quite difficult to work out when that happened, you know what I mean? The reason for people leaving seems to be a lack of creative autonomy, a very top-down development hierarchy, when I think it was sort of sold as them to be like a sort of bottom-up, a more collaborative approach, you know, and staff not feeling heard when it comes to key issues such as development priorities, project planning, and team staffing, you know, all the shit that you need to do to make a fucking video game.
Yeah.
Apparently, progress has subsequently been painfully slow because of these issues and because of the departures, and many have actually said that they are surprised at how lenient Xbox has been considering the lack of progress. Apparently, it's sort of understood that Xbox and their leadership will be patient with the first party studios, the new teams, specifically the new Playgrounds team, which is looking after Fable, Rare now, which is looking after Everwild, and now the Initiative, which is doing Perfect Dark. The priority is to put together teams capable of regularly producing critically acclaimed projects like PlayStation's Naughty Dog and Insomniac. That's me just reading from the article. But the initiative seems to be failing on both fronts here, because they seem to be failing to make a game at all, let alone a critically acclaimed one, and they are failing to build a team capable of doing so because everyone keeps leaving and they have to hire outside help. It is widely assumed as well that the result of this, the result of hiring Crystal Dynamics and the result of this enormous turnover in your sort of lead staff, is that this is effectively a soft reboot for the game, meaning that the game is still many, many years away.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tragic development for all of this. You know, when first announced, got people's excitement up, and I did think that the inclusion of Crystal Dynamics was an odd thing altogether. But bizarre. You know, you like to hope that maybe that's a sign of progress, and we'll see as big development teams working together and producing stuff. But it did feel like something that could, I don't know, harbour a problem, and whether or not that is the reason people are leaving, we, as you say, we don't really know. But
I mean, support studios are nothing weird. Do you know? I mean, support studios happen all the time, but it's not usually an enormous, well-regarded third-party developer that comes in to help you.
One sort of announced as a partner or something. It was all very odd, and given the connections between the people who were already working at the initiative, who now presumably are some of the people who have left, who had the connections to Crystal Dynamics. You know, have you got a team there now who doesn't have the connections that they thought they were going to have? It spells trouble going forward. And I just, to comment on that Xbox leniency thing, well, like, if that's them and Rare and Playground, well, Rare aren't really going anywhere with Everwild as far as we know. That's been rebooted several times. Like, maybe if they want to release some of these big games and have the critical success that they're looking for, maybe they actually do have to be a bit more involved. I get the feeling that PlayStation is very involved with their development teams, and this standoffish thing isn't really working. Now, they've got around the problem of Xbox has no games by just buying a million studios, but you still need stuff like this to work, or people will still be saying Xbox can't actually produce games. They're a great platform, but they can't produce anything. Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I don't know if this does require Xbox cracking the whip a little bit. Like, I don't really know what the solution is here, but whatever's happening right now clearly isn't working. Alright, let's finish off as we always do with a couple of shout-outs. Shout-out number 1, and as promised, Ghostwire Tokyo reviews are in, and I think it's safe to say that they are a little disappointing, currently sitting with a 76 on Metacritic, which must be lower than they were hoping for, you know. I think that the game is basically, like, fine-ish. I think that visually and from like an art design perspective, I think it's really hit the nail on the head. I mean, it does look fantastic if you see this game, but I think that while many are acknowledging that the combat is cool and interesting to a degree, it is also quite quickly revealed to be fairly shallow. And the story as well seems to be sort of underwhelming and poorly paced, and unfortunately it just all sort of ravels together to make a game that, while it might be enjoyable as a playthrough, maybe ultimately be quite forgettable in the long run. Maybe it resonates with a few people and they really, really enjoy it and it's great, but ultimately I don't think it's the home run that they were hoping for with this game, and particularly launching a new IP, you know? Yeah, it's a bit disappointing, as you say. I think that the development troubles that we knew that game was going to have when its director left kind of pointed in this direction. It feels to me, from everything I've read about it, like it got stuck in the mud. Like it had a couple of decent ideas and they never really progressed, and that's why you've got a game that feels a bit kind of disjointed and undeveloped.
Absolutely, yeah. As we said, it's never good when a game director leaves the project in the middle of the development. Just another example. Alright, Lewis, as we promised also, Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins has come out. Well, that was actually last week, but I wanted to mention it because I was semi-interested in it. Unfortunately, also sitting with a pretty mediocre, I would actually argue subpar, Metacritic score of 72 on the PS5. This game is available for Xbox and PC, but neither of them have enough reviews to aggregate a proper score, but 72 is pretty disappointing. It seems that multiple reviews have weirdly compared this to a B-movie, and I think that, like a B-movie, it can be pretty fun and an enjoyable experience at times, but you would also struggle to say that it was good. You know, I think that the Neo/Souls-like combat is very much the highlight of the game. Everything else very much seems to be the problem. Ultimately, I think it's an interesting spin-off of Final Fantasy, but it's probably not really realised here, which is a shame because I do think that it's a good idea.
Totally, yeah. It feels like a botch to me, to be honest. It had so much promise and it looks really shonky, to be honest. Story and presentation-wise. Yeah, just a big misstep in that regard. So I think maybe one to check out when it goes on sale, or if we maybe get it as part of a PS Plus thing or something at some point, but I wouldn't be rushing out and spending full price on this from all the reviews that I've seen.
Certainly not. Alright, let's shout out number 3. Tunic has also come out this week. This is the heavily Zelda-inspired action-adventure game where you are a sword-wielding fox. It is currently sitting with a pretty damn impressive 85 on PC and 86 on Series X. I remember the first time that we seen this game was years ago, years and years ago. It absolutely blew my mind. I thought it looked absolutely fantastic, and then you find out it was only developed by one guy, sole developer on this game, which is absolutely staggering when you look at it. The game looks absolutely amazing. By all accounts, it plays absolutely amazing. I could not be happier for the developer. I'm definitely going to get around to playing this game at some point because it looks absolutely fucking great, frankly.
Yeah, I'm really, really pleased with how this has turned out. The reception it's got is fantastic. It feels like a real love letter to kind of early Nintendo games. I think there's a lot of like references within that to like SNES game guides and that kind of thing, which is just really exciting to dive into. And yeah, it's been announced as a day one Game Pass game as well. So if you're already on Game Pass, you can go and try it out for free. So why the hell not?
Definitely, man. Absolutely. Alright, and shout out number 4. 2 big game reveals have happened this week. This is a 2-for-1, this shout out list. Firstly, CDPR have revealed that they are currently developing the next Witcher game, to the surprise of absolutely fucking no one. The thing that was interesting was that they will be developing the game on Unreal 5 rather than on their custom Red engine, which, considering the state of Cyberpunk, I think that is a very good move because I think that engine was held together with fucking duct tape. So this is a very, very good move as far as I'm concerned. Despite announcing a strategic partnership with Epic around the use of UE5, CDPR have said that they won't be exclusive to one store, e.g. they won't be exclusive to the Epic store because, I mean, that would be a bit of a shock considering they own GOG, but they've nonetheless clarified that for everyone. Secondly, Supermassive of Until Dawn fame have announced the Until Dawn spiritual successor, The Quarry. It is very much going for a teen slasher vibe. Similarly to Until Dawn, you control 9 different characters, all of whom can die in a variety of ways. I think each character, they said, has between 10 and 12 different ways that they can die. Unlike Until Dawn, this will be a multi-platform game and is published by 2K, and it is coming out on June the 10th, which is not long to wait at all.
Yeah, one not very surprising announcement from CDPR there. They've got a lot of work to do for me to get me excited again. I really liked The Witcher 3, but Cyberpunk was such a massive disaster that, you know, I'm not going to get super hype about this game until we've seen a bit more, but good to know that it's in development. And this one from Supermassive, a bit more of a surprise. It does feel a little odd that they're stepping away from the Dark Pictures anthology already, and I'm kind of interested that 2K have backed this because it says that yet another publisher sees mileage in this style of game, which you and I have talked often on and off air about whether or not it really merits the kind of prevalence that it still has, I suppose. But, you know, Until Dawn was a good laugh, and this could be a great party game and a good streaming game, so wait to see what we get from it. But yeah, probably not one for us massively.
No, not so much. But yeah, interesting to see how much the sort of Telltale style game has got mileage out of, considering that Telltale, the company, never got this much mileage, you know. And the final shout out number 5, just wanted to touch on the support that the video games industry continues to give the people in Ukraine. The humanitarian crisis that's happening there is just absolutely appalling. The itch.io bundle that we spoke about last time we recorded has raised over 6.3 million to aid the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, which is really, really unbelievable. Very happy to say that I bought that bundle and I was part of that. However, that bundle is now finished, unfortunately. But, ladies and gentlemen, there is another bundle. The Humble Bundle are doing a similar thing. It's $40 or $38.58 here in the UK. The bundle will include 123 items, including 85 games, but also comics, RPG books, I think it's Pathfinder stuff, and software as well. 100% of the money goes to 4 humanitarian charities working in Ukraine. The games include Back 4 Blood, which is really not that old, Metroid Exodus, the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, Sunset Overdrive, Quantum Break, Fable Anniversary Edition, Max Payne 3, Kerbal Space Program, Slay the Spire, Skullgirls, The Amnesia Collection, Superhot, D-Rester, West of Dead, Yoko's Island Express. System Shock, Brother, A Tale of Two Sons. Like, there's lots of good games in there of varying sizes. Do you know what I mean? Apparently, if all these items were sold individually, they would be in excess of $2,000. So this is an absolute fucking steal. It has already raised $12.5 million, over $12.5 million. That is a truly staggering number for anything, but to give that to such a worthy cause is just amazing. This bundle is available only until Friday, the 25th of March, which is the day after this podcast comes out. I would highly recommend that anyone who can buy this bundle, not only because it's a fantastic deal, but also because you'd be helping out those people in Ukraine who are living in a very, very, very scary time right now. I am definitely going to buy this after the podcast. I hope that you do too, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as we said last week, just do anything that you can to support the effort in Ukraine at the moment, through games, through other means. But yeah, a great bundle here. Again, I'm sure we'll see more of this going forward as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Lewis. And with that, I think it's time for a beer, and then we'll be back for Topic of the Week. And we are back for Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is our BAFTA Game Awards predictions, Lewis. We would usually do the DICE Awards, but of course we missed that because I was off sick. So we're doing the BAFTA Awards instead for the first time ever. Here we are, Lewis. I think that we have to get stuck into this very, very quickly because we have so much to get through in so little time. But the BAFTAs themselves will be on the 7th of April, and we will do a sort of recap then to see who won our predictions. Loser, as always, will be forced to play a game by the other, but usually we're quite nice about it. It's all in good fun, ladies and gentlemen.
Sometimes,
Lewis, why don't you kick things off with Best Game?
Yeah, so your nominees here are Deathloop, Forza Horizon 5, Inscription, It Takes Two, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Returnal.
A strong beginning, I have to say. I'm very glad to see Inscription there. I think that's absolutely fucking awesome. Absolutely awesome. I am glad that Forza Horizon 5 is there, which it wasn't at the Game Awards. I'm glad that Returnal is also there, which wasn't at the Game Awards, and is actually my game of the year. However, I am picking this to win, not to say what my favourite game of the year was, which is definitely Returnal, by the way. I'm picking It Takes Two. I'm going down exactly the same lines as the Game Awards did.
Very interesting. I was certain you were going to go Returnal here, and I was going to pick a sort of counterpoint to that. Returnal, it should be said, alongside It Takes Two, has the most BAFTA nominations. I thought it was a toss-up between Returnal and Deathloop. I'm going to go Deathloop here, although I don't think it is the best game, but I think that it's, again, one of the ones that the industry kind of coalesces around, and it's stylish and all that stuff. So I'm going to go there, but could go in any direction, that one.
Surprisingly strong, considering I thought last year was a down year, but when you look at them all together like that, you know what? That is a good year for video games, right? Yeah. All right, Lewis, artistic achievement.
So your nominees are The Artful Escape, It Takes Two, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village, and Returnal. Yeah, so for artistic achievement, and we don't have kind of category descriptors here, so we're kind of having to put in a bit of legwork to work out what we think that how these awards might be decided. So for this one, to me, artistic achievement, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is kind of the standout, and I know there's going to be a debate there against Psychonauts 2. The Artful Escape is really great to see on there as well. I'm going to go Ratchet & Clank on this one. I don't think it necessarily deserves that, but I'm going to pick it anyway.
That is very, very interesting, Liz. I think that we're going down very different roads here, because I'm going to pick Artful Escape.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I mean, I think if we're talking actual artistic achievement here, I think The Artful Escape probably is the most artful game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I wouldn't disagree with that, yeah.
Next up is game design.
So your nominees are Deathloop, Forza Horizon 5, Inscription, It Takes Two, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Returnal.
Man, this is hard. Like, I could see this going for Inscription, to be completely honest. But game design, I think it's got to be It Takes Two here for me.
Yeah, I think that is probably where I would be leaning as well. There's a lot to choose between here, but the variety that It Takes Two brings is why I think it might trump some of those other top games. So I'm going to
definitely.
I'm going to go
same reason.
I'm going to go It Takes Two here as well. Yeah.
Next up is animation.
So your nominees for this are Call of Duty Vanguard, It Takes Two, Kena Bridge of Spirits, Life is Strange True Colours, Psychonauts 2, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. And again, another tough category here, because there's...
Totally agree, man.
Like the artistic achievement one, there's just a lot going on in each of these games, animation being a massive part of several of them. I might be taking your trump card here, and I'm going to pick Kena Bridge of Spirits for this one because I think that is what this game is. It's only its animation. It's not only its animation, but
that's very rude. It's a very good
but
game.
Without that, I don't think it would have been in the conversation at all. So I think that is what stands it up. So I'm going for that.
It does look fantastic. There's no doubt about that. However, I think that this, and I would suggest that you probably thought the same, is between Kena and Ratchet and Clank. I'm going to go the other direction, Ratchet and Clank. This is going to be an interesting one, Liz. I don't think we've ever deviated as much as this.
Neither of us follow the BAFTAs as much as we do the DICE Awards or the Game Awards. So,
no, that's very true.
We could find that we're just totally off base with all of these.
All right, Liz. Audio achievement now.
Okay, so your nominees for this are The Artful Escape, Call of Duty Vanguard, Deathloop, Halo Infinite, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Returnal.
Usually, when it comes to audio design, the safe bets are the first-person shooters, unless Returnal is in this category.
Oh.
It has to be Returnal for me. The stuff that PlayStation were doing with audio design and that was fucking ridiculous. It was absolutely incredible. Don't get me wrong, I know as well that The Artful Escape obviously is built around its audio design as well. But for me, in terms of a technical achievement, which I think that this category is sort of getting at, Returnal.
Yeah, I think a fair pick there among a strange, quite varied category, but loads of kind of worthy nominees there. I'm going to go with your recommended, always pick the first-person shooters. But whether or not that should be Call of Duty or Halo Infinite, I'm less certain about. And I might go Halo. Just because it feels like the bigger, better, kind of more critically acclaimed game from last year. But I mean, I'm stabbing in the dark on that. I always am with audio categories anyway, but particularly between the shooters. But I'm going to go Halo.
Nice one, man. Next up is music.
And your nominees this time are Deathloop, Far Cry 6, Halo Infinite, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Returnal. Another tough category here. For me, I'm going to go this time with Deathloop. I think, again, it's just got such style to its music. I think there's so much to pick from, though. I don't know. I'm worried which way you're going to go on this one.
Well, I was going to go for Deathloop, but the toss-up for me was between Deathloop and Halo. So I might go for Halo just to make things interesting.
Okay. I can see a world where neither of us get any points on this prediction.
Me too, man. Me too. This is wild. Next up is narrative-less.
So your nominees are It Takes Two, Life is Strange True Colours, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Psychonauts 2, Returnal, and Unpacking.
Unpacking? What an unbelievable nomination.
Yeah.
That is fucking awesome. That is great. I love that. I don't think it has a hope in hell here, frankly, but it's a great nomination all the same. For me, this is between Guardians of the Galaxy, which I believe won this category at the Game Awards, and Life is Strange True Colour, which is all its narrative. The game is entirely its narrative. I'm going Life is Strange, man. I'm going Life is Strange.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, Unpacking, just a quick nod to that. I mean, how it tells its story is really fascinating. It's great to see it get a nod here. I'm going to go with Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, partly because of its win at the Game Awards, but also, a really lauded narrative. But again, you could see this award going in any direction there. Such a broad category again. No massive big hitters, really. It's all, just such a mix. Great to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as I said, if I wasn't picking Life is Strange, I would be picking Guardians of the Galaxy. This is very much set up to be an interesting shootout here, Liz. After that is technical achievement.
So your nominees are Forza Horizon 5, Hitman 3, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village, and Returnal. And what a joy to see Hitman on the list, Mark.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I don't think it has a hope in hell in winning here, but it's lovely to see it there, Liz. It very, very, very much is.
I think for me, technical achievement, I mean, again, you could kind of go in any direction here, but Forza Horizon 5 is the obvious standout to me, so I'm going to go with that for technical achievement. Feel free to go in that direction too, man.
No, I'm genuinely torn. I think that the technical achievements of Ratchet and Clank are incredibly impressive. And Returnal. In fact, you know what? I'm going Ratchet and Clank. I'm going Ratchet and Clank. I'm making it interesting, Liz. I'm just being contrarian all the way down.
Fair enough. You love to see it. You do love to see it.
Next up is Best British Game. This one, obviously, very unique to the BAFTAs.
It is, yeah. And a good little lineup of nominees, which are Alba, A Wildlife Adventure, Death's Door, Fights in Tight Spaces, Forza Horizon 5, Overboard, and Sable.
Now, I think that there is a fantastic selection of games here. Sable maybe didn't land the way that it wanted to, but I still think that's a very interesting game. Death's Door is absolutely fantastic. I think Alba is a really interesting game as well. But in reality, Lewis, there is one that towers above the rest here, unfortunately, both in scale and probably in how many votes it's going to have, and that would be Forza Horizon 5 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've played a number of these games. I've played Overboard and Fights in Tight Spaces as well, and there's just a lot of great little ideas going on across this category. Great to see the strength of the British gaming sector. I would love to pick Death's Door for this. I think it is one of the best games released last year.
See if anything wins apart from Forza, that will be a stunning result.
Well, it would be, and so I do feel like I ought to go for Forza, but maybe just to keep it interesting, and only for that reason, because I'm 90% sure that Forza is going to win this, I will pick Death's Door just for that.
Nice, man.
Just to give them the nod. I just played it and I loved it, and yeah, they're getting my vote on this one.
I like it, man. I like the attitudes we've got going into this. This is great. Next up is Best Debut Game List.
It is. So once again, your nominees are The Artful Escape, Eastward, The Forgotten City, Genesis Noir, Maquette, and Toem. Another great collection of games here, a few of which I've played and really, really enjoyed last year. For me, I mean, The Artful Escape has been nominated so heavily across here that there's obviously someone at the BAFTAs who likes it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pick The Forgotten City because, again, I think it's a game that people seem to adore last year. It's one of the games that I'm most desperate to get round to. I could be totally off base with this, but I'm going to go with The Forgotten City.
Nice one, man. I mean, I don't think that it is a bad choice, really, at all. I think that I probably will be going for Artful Escape again here. Yeah, I just think that, as you said, it's been nominated widely here, and I think that it was a real standout game in the indie scene and generally, and hell of a debut, I've got to say. But I mean, The Forgotten City, Genesis Noir, Maquette even, I know I didn't land the way it wanted to, but some really interesting games there. Yeah, I'd be happy to see any of them win it.
Totally, yeah.
Next up is Family Game List.
So your nominees here are Alba, A Wildlife Adventure, Chicory, A Colourful Tale, Forza Horizon 5, Mario Party Superstars, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Unpacking Again.
This is interesting. I'm going to pick, and you might be surprised at this, Ratchet & Clank, because I think that it is the best game there, arguably. No, Forza Horizon 5 is probably technically the best game there, but the best family game. I don't know how many families are sitting down and playing Forza Horizon. Do you know what I mean? That to me seems a bit odd. I haven't said that. Alba, Chicory, or Unpacking, I would fucking love to see any of them win. This is usually the Mario category, but I don't think Mario Party All-Stars is good enough for anyone to win it. So yeah, Ratchet & Clank for me. Yeah,
it's a tough category to pick from this one, because again, like Unpacking, I'm glad to see it nominated, but I wouldn't think of it as a family game exactly. I can't really imagine a family sitting around to play it. And so I think you're probably right. I think Ratchet & Clank probably will get it, although I don't know if I think of that really as a family game exactly. It's, you know, kid-friendly game, maybe.
I agree. Yeah.
I'll go, just to kind of keep it interesting, I'm not going to go for Forza because I don't really think it belongs. So a bit of a stab in the dark, but I'll go for a Chicory on this one, just kind of to keep it interesting. Probably not get anywhere with that, but there you go.
No, I like it, man. Again, if Chicory won, I would be delighted to see it. Genuinely would. Next up is Game Beyond Entertainment.
Yep, so I think this is your category that's akin to the
Games for Impact thing at the Game Awards.
Exactly, yeah. And your nominees are Alba, A Wildlife Adventure, Before Your Eyes, Chicory, A Colourful Tale, Game Builder Garage, It Takes Two, and Psychonauts 2.
I think the game that I would really like to see win this is probably Before Your Eyes, because it's just such an interesting, cool sort of game, or Chicory even, but I think the game that will win this is It Takes Two.
Is that what you're going for then? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, again, a bit of a stab in the dark, maybe. I don't think it should go to Psychonauts, and I don't think that It Takes Two has a message beyond entertainment, I've got to say. Like, I think that there's a whole debate going on there.
Well, it's trying to have one.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. I like the Game Builder Garage is in there because it's a different slant from the Games for Impact angle to this.
Yeah,
it's more
definitely,
about games development.
Yeah,
but I will go for Before Your Eyes, just because I do think that it was such a unique experience for people. So yeah, let's say that.
Yeah, man, that's an awesome one. Like, if that won, I would genuinely be delighted. Next up is Original Property.
So your nominees here are Deathloop, Death's Door, Inscription, It Takes Two, Returnal, and Unpacking. And yet again, an absolutely stellar category here. For me, I would say that the best original property on that list is probably Returnal or Death's Door, but it could go in any old way.
It really could. I mean, that is a strong selection.
Like Inscription as well there. Yeah. Really. I'm gonna go for Returnal on this one. I'm not confident about that in the least, but yeah, I've said it out loud now, so let's stick with it.
Fair enough, man. I am also gonna go for Returnal here. In fact, do you know what? We're not doing double ups. Death's Door. Why not?
Are you going Death's Door? Jeez, okay.
Deathloop. Let's go for Deathloop.
Oh man, if Death's Door takes it now.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it.
I mean, again, to see unpacking on there and a list that contains games of that caliber is just such an impressive thing. I'm really pleased for them.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Definitely. All right, Lewis, best performer in a leading role.
So your nominees for this are, and apologies for any name butchering, Ozioma Akaga for Juliana Blake in Deathloop, Jason E. Kelly as Colt Van in Deathloop, Jennifer Hale as Rivet in Ratchet & Clank, John McLaren as Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy, Erika Mori as Alex Chen in Life is Strange True Colours, and Jane Perry as Celine Vassos in Returnal.
For me, this very much is between Jane Perry as Celine and Erika Mori as Alex Chen. I strongly suspect that the best performance here is Erika Mori. Am I going to go for that? Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Erika Mori, Life is Strange, yeah.
Interesting one. See, I still think that the Deathloop contenders could steal this one, although they may well split their own vote because, it's kind of... You're sort of voting for the game as well as the performance in a lot of ways.
Sure, yeah.
I'm going to go for Ozioma Akaga as Juliana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I could be, again, totally off base with that one, but, those two...
No, she was great.
They were the core,
great performances.
Their relationship and their performances were kind of at the core of that game, so I just didn't see enough of Jane Perry as Celine in Returnal, but I didn't play it very much, so that's kind of the reason I didn't go in that direction.
I suppose the reason that I went for Erika Mori over Jane Perry is because Jane Perry's performance, while very good, and I'm not really saying this is any negative, it was sort of like one tone. It was much more one-dimensional than Erika Mori's was in Life is Strange, even from only having seen playthrough of other people's Life is Strange playthrough. But yeah, no, she's clearly very, 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 very good. And finally, Lewis, best performer in a supporting role. Very BAFTA of them. I like this category.
Yeah, it's a good category to have. And you'll see from some of the nominees how it maybe is a better idea than what the Game Awards does. So your nominees are Laura Bailey as Paulina Petrova in Call of Duty Vanguard, Kimberly Brooks as Hollis Forsyth in Psychonauts 2, Jason Cavalier as Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, Maggie Robertson as Lady Dimitrescu in Resident Evil Village, Han Soto as Gabe Chen in Life is Strange True Colours, and Alex Wiener as Rocket in Guardians of the Galaxy. I really like that they've got this category here, and I really like that characters like Lady Dimitrescu, who did scoop the award at the Game Awards, gets of recognised in the place that she should be here, and other people get the chance to win the leading performance one. As a result of that, I am going to go with Lady Dimitrescu, I think. Yeah. I haven't played Guardians of the Galaxy. I didn't play Psychonauts 2 either. In fact, I haven't played any of the rest of those games, so I'm going to go for Maggie Robertson here. But, I have slight issues with that as a kind of an award-winning performance, but there you go. What's your pick, Mac?
Well, I also basically do think that Maggie Robertson will win this. And her performance as Lady Dimitrescu was absolutely fantastic.
Totally fine, yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic performance.
Just really massively inflated by a marketing campaign as well.
Yeah, sure.
Is.
Laura Bailey as well is just great in basically everything
that she touches.
To mix things up, and I'm basically handing you this category, I'm sort of aware of that, but I'm going to go for Kimberly Brooks as Hollis Forsyth in Psychonauts 2 because of a lot of sort of weird and wacky performances. Hers really stood out as very, very good, and she was playing it much more straight, but really great new character as well in the franchise, and I really thought her performance was excellent. I don't think that she's going to win this, which is a shame, but her performance was very, very good indeed. All right, Lewis, and with that, I think we will have to call it a day there, and we'll come back to these predictions when the award show has been and see who wins. Lewis, do you think you're going to win this time?
No. I could see neither of us getting any points, but maybe,
I know. I win by a score of 2-3 or something like that.
But it'll make, we'll sit and watch the BAFTAs now, and it'll make it really exciting, I think. So that's something.
Yeah, it will. It genuinely will. And it'll be at a reasonable time for us. It'll be lovely. Anyway, I'd like to remind everyone that you can find Players2 on all the social media. That is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really, really, really helps us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more. And why not be a double legend and give us a review on Spotify as well? Again, it just helps us out even more. And thank you genuinely to anyone that's done that for us. You're an absolute legend to us. I'd like to remind everyone that our play-along game for this month is The Pathless, a game that I am yet to start but will be starting this week. Very, very much looking forward to this one. Again, we basically played Abzu, which I totally fell in love with, basically to get to The Pathless, so I'm very, very excited about playing The Pathless.
Yeah, lovely chill game, lots of exploration. If that's the kind of thing you're into, definitely play along with us.
Yeah, definitely, man. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Thanks.